It's great to be here today. I think this is a really, really exciting thing, and the whole idea of bringing so many people from Denmark together to think about resistance, I think, is awesome. I'd like to start by acknowledging we're on Aboriginal land, but in particular, I'd like to acknowledge that Aboriginal people and Indigenous people around the world have been caring for land and have been practicing stewardship of the country in really, really important ways that remain as an inspiration to us. We can live in harmony with the land. We can live in a way that is not harming, and that's something that we obviously need to return to. So I want to acknowledge that. The other thing I want to acknowledge really is young people. That there was going to be a young person speaking before me today about climate change, but unfortunately his work schedule didn't allow it. One of the most inspiring things that's happened recently is the... do you want to put it up? Yeah. One of the most inspiring things that's happened recently is Greta Thunberg, a young Swedish woman who has been standing up for the climate by sitting outside the Swedish Parliament every Friday and saying she's not going to stop until her government has done something really important and really significant about climate change. She is saying very clearly, she's saying to us, you are stealing my future. And that's a really powerful statement which I want to acknowledge. And just as an illustration of that, a few years ago, I came up with this idea that as a baby boomer, as I've been having a party on carbon, and I'm trying to pass on the hangover to the next generation. It's now much worse than a hangover. It's now an emergency, so I want to acknowledge that too. Okay. Just a little bit of a story about me. I was born in a British colony when the British Empire still existed, and I was born into an emergency situation. 3 months after I was born, a state of emergency was declared because there was a liberation struggle going on in that country. Now I find myself in another emergency. I'm now in the climate and ecological emergency that is taking us over and has sort of snuck up and is surprising most people on this planet. Back then, the emergency was, it was declared by the government and huge things happened. Now we're part of it. We're in a situation where people are urging governments to declare a state of emergency about the climate and the ecology. It's slightly different. It doesn't involve soldiers coming on the ground and doing sort of warlike things. It involves us really, really thinking about how can we work together to address the emergency that's facing us. Okay, I just want to make 4 points about where we are and talk about Citizens Climate Lobby as one of the solutions. I'm very solution focused. One of the ways I like to think is I like to go back to first principles. What is the root cause of this problem, and how can we deal with the root cause as well as the subsidiary causes? It always makes sense for me to go to the root cause. So I'm going to list 4 of them and then talk about the solutions. The first one is our social and economic system, primarily our economic system. We live in an economic system that is addicted to growth, a particular type of growth that is GDP growth. And that GDP growth is not defined. We have an economic system that is kind of random. It's just about, let's grow our economy. It doesn't matter that that growth includes things like war and accidents and lots of negative things that counted towards counting our GDP growth. It's crazy. It doesn't make any sense. And it's most of the economists who are advising our governments seriously seem to believe that we can continue to grow forever, that there is no limit to the growth. And they don't understand also the whole notion of compounding, that if you grow 3% a year, every year, The compound growth means that you double the size of the economy every 21 years or something. I'm not sure of the figure, but the whole thing about compounding growth is that it grows much faster than you think it's going to, and in no time you're overcome. The consequence of this unlimited growth is the climate and ecological emergency we're in, because to keep growing and producing more and more consumer goods and exchanging more and more with each other and trading more and more rapidly with other countries and using more and more fuel to do that, just puts us on a cycle that is kind of unstoppable. We are in an addictive situation. And I also like to think of the analysis of cancer, that in a way, our economic system is actually cancerous, because it's going to keep growing until it kills us, the host. That's actually what's happening. So we need to figure out how can we break this cancerous system? What is the chemotherapy or whatever else that we need to do? The best solution I've come across is that we need to change our economic system. And for most people, that's a really, really difficult thing, because when you say, well, capitalism is the problem, most people say, well, communism isn't the answer either, is it? And a lot of people think that that's the only choice, but there are thousands of different choices. And the one I'd like to recommend to you to look up is donut economics. Sounds like a crazy name for an economic system, but donut economics is a really, really rational, thoughtful, well thought out idea about how we can balance the needs of humans and the planet we live on.